Am I, 30SF, crazy, or is he, 30SM, cheating? Edit. Just to clarify, Amanda is also married, and has children. From my snooping, I can see she got married about 8 years ago. Blank. I'm using an alt because I need to make sure no one can figure out who I am if they stumble upon this. So here's what happened. A week ago Sunday, my 30SF husband, 30SM, took only one of our children out to an activity, and I was told, someone from work may come, but not sure. When I pressed, he wouldn't tell me who it was, or even whether it was a male or female. The person was referred to as they constantly, even after he came home. They all went to lunch, to their activity, then out to supper and for a drink at a brewery beside the activity. Struck me as weird, but I let it go. Later in the week, I asked about it again, and he said it was a girl from work, Amanda. Didn't elaborate at all other than to say she brought her daughter and the kids had fun. This past week, my husband posted a weird Facebook story. It was a photo of him that he thinks he looks sexy in, with the song Hey Soul Sister playing, and the lyrics overlaid. If you don't know the lyrics, look them up, because that adds to the story for sure. I didn't see it at first, but my best friend sent me a message joking around about it. I asked him about it, and he says, I meant to send it as a private story just to you, but didn't do it right, and immediately deleted it. He doesn't do this sort of thing for me, well, ever. So it struck me as strange. He didn't go on to repost it, just to me, as he said he meant to, just deleted it. Our significant other, I thought. On Friday morning, I went down to his computer to pull something up, and his Facebook was open. The story I thought he deleted was there, this time with the added writing of "danger" on it. I looked on my phone, and he definitely didn't have a story from him there. So I opened it. It said it was posted 18 hours ago, saw one viewer only, and a big heart flying up that the viewer loved it. Who was the one viewer? Amanda. So I checked the privacy settings. He set it to only be visible to her. There was a second story of his as well, posted 17 hours ago. That was another photo looking slightly more sexy with "sultry" written on it. Again, one viewer, set to private with only her as the audience, and she loved it. So I went to her profile. She also had stories that were guaranteed private. One was, "Press here to see more," with a generic photo of her looking cute, with a heart on it, which he loved, and the second was a photo of her looking seductive, biting her lip, shoulder exposed, with "more sultry" written on it. He loved that one too. Clearly it was in response to his. I was mad. Mad. Like couldn't hold my biting remarks back, sort of mad, but didn't outright confront him with what I know, and still haven't. That night, I didn't sleep and got out of bed early. He followed me downstairs, went to the couch with his phone and stayed there for about 2 hours, then went to his computer and, as I saw later, started going through and deleting things and making sure he looked at his story archive, presumably to see what is there and what he had to hide or delete. Despite him not knowing exactly what I know and have seen, on Saturday morning he had the audacity to yell at me down a hallway that it wasn't what I think. What isn't what I think? He doesn't know exactly what I've seen. I took some time this morning to peruse her Facebook profile, and it turns out that this woman is the same woman who I had to ban him from seeing outside of, for work-related purposes only, when we were newlyweds 12 years ago. They used to go to lunch together regularly, and hang out, talk during their breaks, when she was a student and he was staff. They work in the same department, but really have zero reason to communicate for work purposes. I told him at the time, she had to be cut out, the end. And he did. Until now. So, Redditors, am I crazy? Or is he cheating on me? We've been together 19 years, married 12. Too long did not read. Husband is sending sultry private Facebook stories to another woman. Probably took her on a date a week ago. Doesn't know what I know but tried to cover it up. She was also a problem 12 years ago, which he also doesn't know I know it's the same person. Cool. Cheating. Start documenting stuff and preparing to leave. He's lying and gaslighting you as well as not respecting your boundaries and getting your kids involved. This is not okay. Be prepared to fight hard and fight to win. Can't tell if he's directly cheated, but none of this is okay. And #X200B. Private images to each other, back and forth, flirty images, sultry images. Hiding those, getting twisted in lies, etc. And #X200B. Either way, this would not be even remotely okay in my books. From my experience, I am going to say absolutely he is cheating on you. I'm sorry. It's time to get the evidence. Have you checked your phone records? Texting and emails? You're not crazy. This is considered emotional cheating. They are interacting with each other on a close level where it has come to a point it needs to be hidden from you as his partner. He may not have done anything physical, or as far as we can tell, with her. But emotional cheating is not less worse than actual cheating either. It is very serious. And it hurts me to read your partner is doing this, while you are married for so long and have kids together. If it quacks like a duck, he is at least toying with the idea and flirting if he isn't outright doing it. The sexy stories is proof enough of something more than friends here. EU.WTF says, sultry. From a woman who's been cheated on multiple times by past partners. All signs point to yes, he's cheating on you. I'm so sorry. If you already have doubts, then I think you know the answer to your question. My sister blames me for the car accident. Edit. Okay, I feel like I need to clarify because my sister's getting a lot of hate. She is on the spectrum and spent many years extremely dependent on me. She has been hospitalized before for complications from malnourishment from her poor diet. Throughout her life she will need varying levels of support, and we don't have family other than me in a position to help her. People like her get lost in the system. She does get certain support through the system, but not enough hours to cover what she necessarily needs, and in the area we live in it's extremely hard to find staff to use the hours she has. So just cutting her off is definitely not an option. Her husband is amazing and totally understanding and helps her too. As she got older she needed less help, but after the accident she needed more again. Also, we both know she should have been wearing a seatbelt. We were on the last stretch of a multi-day 40-hour road trip and she took it off while she was really sleepy and not thinking very clearly. We both wear them 99% of the time. We have an amazing relationship other than this. She helps me with my relationship issues and is extremely gentle and kind and caring. I think she's making these weird jokes because she isn't handling the trauma from the accident well. I'm more looking for ways to talk to her about it because I'm not good with my words. Last year I, M19, was in a hit and run during a snowstorm where a truck rear-ended me on the highway going 50 mph. I walked away essentially unscathed, but my sister, F22, broke multiple bones and more importantly crushed half her spine, resulting in what was very nearly her death. She had to have an intense surgery, a lengthy hospital stay, and many-month recovery time after. She will never regain her previous mobility. They never found the driver who left while we waited for an ambulance. Since then my sister has made many jokes about how I almost killed her. No one's ever risked my life like that before. You would have made my husband a widow. I blame myself for the accident. I was stopped in traffic at the time, but when they hit me we slid in the snow and I didn't do anything to regain control of the vehicle. You're supposed to turn into the slide and accelerate to regain control, and all I did was hit the brakes. I saw them coming in my rear view mirror but didn't process what was happening in time. We hit an 18-wheeler and she wasn't wearing a seatbelt. I was, hence her many injuries. And the car started smoking and she was freaking out and I carried her out of the car. I shouldn't have moved her. She had spinal shards floating around. She could have died. I should have made her wear a seatbelt. She was delayed growing up and I have always taken care of her growing up. Our parents were abusive drug addicts who were never there. She shut down and I protected her from them, fed her, helped her with her homework, protected her at school, called ambulances after suicide attempts, etc. I worked 3 jobs to pay for food and rent, etc. until she moved in with her husband. I was supposed to protect her and I failed her and she knows it. Everyone's been really nice to me about it and says it's not my fault, but I feel like I failed her and she resents me for it. It's been a year and when I close my eyes all I see is the truck coming in my rear view mirror and seeing us go flying towards the 18-wheeler and thinking my sister was going to die. I wanted to kill myself when I found out how hurt she was in the hospital. I would have done it, but then she would have been alone. I want to throw up and die when I think about it. I think I ruined her life. She can only bend half her back now and she's got big parts she can't feel. She was in so much pain she just screamed and screamed for days. It's all I can think about. This wasn't your fault. Your sister is an adult who chose not to wear her seatbelt. You were hit by somebody else. You had literally no part to play in these events and yet you're taking on all of the responsibility and guilt. Please talk to a therapist so that you can process this trauma and not let it destroy your life. You really don't deserve any of what you're putting yourself through right now. And honestly, I think you need to get some distance from your sister right now. She's been through something tough as well, but she's abusing you and that's wrong. Her anger at her situation is misdirected and you should give her some space until she realizes that. She wasn't wearing a seatbelt. I'm sorry, but that is on her. She doesn't get to blame you for her, frankly idiotic, decision. My advice? Stop driving her places. Anytime she makes a joke about the accident, leave the conversation. You need to put yourself first. She's hurting you. The only person to blame for the accident is the person who hit you. She made a choice to not wear a seatbelt, and the injuries she sustained from the crash are because of that decision. It's not her fault that you were hit, but it was her choice to not be safe. She didn't wear a seatbelt, something that would have probably made it so she wasn't so badly injured in the first place. What she's doing is incredibly shitty, and you need to stop enabling that behavior by putting your foot down and pointing out the obvious. You and her both know whose fault it really was. Repeat it until she gets it into her head and stops guilt-tripping you. What does her husband do? Why is she so dependent on you for her care? Stop doing things for her and live your life. You basically took care of her all her life despite being the younger sibling, and she's done nothing to show her gratitude and is simply trying to prevent you from moving on. It's time to cut the cord and let it shrivel. She wasn't wearing a seatbelt. This is 100% on her. Fuck that. This is 200% on her LMAO. She wasn't wearing a seatbelt, fuck her. If you or someone you know is contemplating suicide, please reach out. You can find help at a national suicide prevention lifeline. USA. 18,2,738,255 U.S. Crisis Text Line. 741,741 Text Home. United Kingdom. 116,123. Trans Lifeline. 877-565-8860. Others. And she wasn't wearing a seatbelt. And the dumb fuck is blaming you? Seriously? I carried her out of the car. Given the situation, that what I was taught to do in my first aid course a week ago. You did the correct thing by carrying her out of the car from the context you've provided. Should I go on one more date to spare his feelings? I'm a 22-year-old female and I met a 33-year-old male teacher at school I am student teaching at until December. We don't see each other incredibly often at school, but probably about 3 times a day at the most. He asked me to go on a date and he had seemed nice enough, and I'm single, so I said yes. We had a good time on the first date and ended up going on a total of 4. But on the past 2 dates he's really been expressing an extreme interest in how my body looks, which is flattering to a certain extent and not to be cocky. Mildly understandable because I have relatively big boobs, but with a slim waist. But for a 33-year-old man it just seems a little childish the way he does it. Like he's grabbed my boobs while we were playing darts at the bar on our 3rd date. It was discreet enough but just felt so high school to me. Then on the 4th date we ended up going to his bedroom, and leading up to doing the deed, he was starting to breath like really shaky, and I could feel him like kinda shaking with nerves. This was really odd given he's 33 and has been with women before. But I tried ignoring it and hoped he'd calm down a little. But honestly it just got worse, and he was just very jerky in all his motions and his rapid panting, and everything truly gave me the ick. This lasted all of about a minute before he couldn't get it up anymore. No judgment on that. Everyone has nerves sometimes and I get that. And he felt super embarrassed about that and said he's been having some issues he's working on with that and didn't expect someone like me to come around while he was working on them, and felt really bad he couldn't exactly perform. He thanked me for being so understanding, and so we cuddled naked and he randomly got it up again. So we tried again and he was able to finish, but the sex itself is what turns me off so much. And he kept wanting to have it again and again that night, and just didn't get that it's not really attractive to have sex once and then expect me to just be there for your pleasure the entire night. Regardless, he's a nice guy and I don't want him to think I don't want to be with him due to the issue he had getting it up. But he's expressed how much he likes me and how he hasn't felt this way in so long, so my less judgy side tells me I should maybe consider going on another date and seeing if it's not so bad the next time. He is a nice guy, but I know myself, and if we aren't compatible in bed then it just won't work out in the long run. So, try another date and spare him feeling like it's due to him not performing well? Or call it off now before he starts liking me more than he already does? Going on another date will only make him think you're more into him than you are. If you know you don't want to continue a relationship with him, it's better for both of you to end it without getting his hopes up even more. Nah, he sexually harassed you and then was an absolute dick to you in bed. Tell him you're good and that you just don't see this working out between you two. Absolutely not. He's a creep and you don't owe him anything. Please don't go on another date with him. First he harassed and groped you, and then he sees you as his doll to use the entire night. It will only get worse. Just pull the plaster off now. It'll hurt less in the long run. Don't go, don't go, don't go. You can do better than this creep, and it sounds like he's kinda banking on you being a people pleaser. I dated someone awful for over a year because I felt bad breaking it off. Please don't make that mistake, it sucks. I didn't even read the post, but I can tell you if you're only going on a date to spare someone's feelings is not even worth your time. Don't go. Call it off now. He'll be fine. Update. I, F30, resigned from my toxic job. Original post. I, F30, handed my resignation letter yesterday at the end of the day. It also was the last day of our annual conference, which was all held virtually. My boss, F40, was in total shock when I came in her office and said, "Here's my resignation." Her face went blank and there was a long awkward silence. Then she had the nerve to ask if this was an impulsive decision. To which I said no, as I stated in my letter that I was looking for other opportunities. She also asked if I had anything lined up. I wanted to laugh at this point, but I simply said I wouldn't answer this question, that I would remain professional and hand over my files to my assistant. And this isn't the worst part of her reaction. She said she was expecting more from me professionally and wanted to have a conversation about it, like how. As stated in my original post, I've been doing my best to meet her impossible standards, working extra hours, evenings and weekends. This person is highly toxic and she wants someone to please her every needs and always say yes. I was thinking during my entire workday, and yes, I was working on a Saturday, how underappreciated I was as an employee, how many times my boss was being petty or passive-aggressive. Every long weekend she would work and tell me about it the following week at the first occasion. Constant guilt-tripping for taking days off since the assistant of my department is very flaky because of her kids. I am saying this with absolutely no judgment. I give her all the latitude she needs. My boss truly has no work-life balance. No hobbies, she never says no to any requests from anyone. This job is exhausting her, but she refuses to admitting anything. Last thing I want to do is to take all those days off I haven't used yet, since I am not in the US and our work policy clearly states your days off are not being converted in any form of compensation when you leave. Anyway, I am beyond relieved. I do not want to deal with a toxic, stressful and demeaning environment ever again. Lesson learned. I had a boss that was younger and somewhat toxic. He was telling me I should take shortcuts to complete my work. I told him, "You hired me because I know what I'm doing," and if he was expecting that type of work, he hired the wrong person. Your decision. He backed off pretty quickly. Happened one other time and since then he has backed off completely. Once he figured out that he couldn't bully or push me, he moved on. Your boss is awful and I'm very happy for you. Take your days. Go to your exit interview and tell the HR person the truth about your ex-boss. Then get yourself a good job somewhere they will appreciate you. Good on you. Toxic workplaces suck. Congratulations on escaping insanity. Best of luck in the future. Oh dear God, just had flashbacks of my old job and the crap I had to deal with. You did better than I did. So glad you took the right steps for your future. Sometimes stay will kill you emotionally and physically more than you realize. On your last day is when you tell her she is a control freak, neurotic, insane person. Good for you. At my last job, one of the women resigned over text at like 9 p.m. at night. My old boss texted her back and told her she was just mad and she would see her at work the next day. When she didn't show up, my old boss harassed the crap out of her until she agreed to meet at her house to talk. Meanwhile, she told all of us at the office the woman was mad at her and would be back the next day. It took several days for my old boss to accept the woman quit. I quit. Boss, Pikachu face, 0.